Hello everyone, I'm Ben James, your host today. We are continuing where Clyde and Danny left off earlier, talking about David as a young warrior who spent time with God and allowed God to touch his life and lead him into what would be ahead for David. Let's get to our group to see what they say today.
Hi, everyone. We are all glad you came back this week. We are so ready to continue talking about David as the shepherd warrior.
I love the sound of that. I think it should be the name of a new movie.
That's interesting, but let's move on.
Just saying, there have been a lot of movies made about David. But seriously, looking at David today as the shepherd warrior, God used David in mighty ways.
For one, he gave him the courage to tackle the enemy that would come against the sheep. God showed David time and time again of his saving power that helped him win.
Not only that, but the time he spent with God and writing the Psalms that he wrote. There was indeed a deep spiritual growth about him as a young teenager.
Do you know that David wrote 73 of the Psalms? This, I believe, is where David grew in the knowledge of the Lord God and knew that God could do anything.
What gets me is that he was a teenager. Just imagine no video games or phones to distract you, all except the lion and wolves and bears that would come around to try and eat the sheep.
You could look at this as a real-life video game being played out with wild animals that could kill you unless you could stop them.
You would think of that. But you're right. He learned real-life experiences that would prepare him for the rest of his future.
When you look at it this way, it puts a whole new different twist on real-life experiences.
I believe that this is why David knew his God and knew the power and things that God would help him do out there with the sheep.
Last week it was mentioned that the sheep get to know the Master's voice. Jesus said that we are his sheep, and we also need to know the voice of Jesus to follow and not be led astray.
One way to know Jesus' voice is to have a personal relationship with him. The more we get to know him, the more we will follow his voice when he calls to us.
This has been awesome today. But as always, it's time for us to go. But never fear, we will be back next week.
Wow, these guys are great. They hit it on the head this week. David spent time with God, and because of this, he knew that God he served. I want to encourage you this week to spend time with God and get to know him. Don't wait till you need him to use him as an emergency door. Then never talk to him until you need him again. I will be back with the group next week for more on David. See you all later.